The next industry we're going to lift the hood on tonight are bars and restaurants. These run the gamut from mom and pop holes in the wall to massive international chains. It's also one of the largest employers in America, providing jobs to more than 15 million people and also pumping in more than $800 billion into the economy just last year. But of course, most restaurants, they've been shuttered for weeks now. And some restaurants, they've converted to doing only takeout and delivery orders. Some, they've added liquor and other deliveries to their list of services, and others, they've just closed entirely. Now, big chains, they've been in the news for accepting relief and money aimed at small businesses. Some, they've given the money back. Others, they've not, claiming that individual restaurants are actually franchises, which makes them each a small business rather than looking at a company as a whole. So what challenges will bars and restaurants face in the near as well as the long term? And for that, let's bring in Andrew Carmellini. He is the chef owner of a number of New York City restaurants of note, including Locanda Verde, the Dutch, Lafayette, Luca, and Bar Primi, and all the other establishments seen there on your screen. And he's kind enough to give us a few minutes and give an idea. I mean, everybody sees Andrew, the shuttered doors and maybe takeout for some restaurants, but put a human face on it as best you can, because as people said, every kitchen, successful ones become almost like families, the self-reliance on each other. How many people have you had to either furlough, let go, reduce hours, cut salaries? Talk about, from your ecosystem, what's happened.
Well, we've had to lay off about 90% of our staff. It's about 1,200 people altogether. And the team that we've kept on since then, we've reduced their salaries quite a bit. This is, unfortunately, just to be able to kind of, get as small as we can. So when we do come out of the fog of this, we're able to do it, in a right way, and able to do it slowly and kind of react to how things open up.
Talk about the decision, Andrew, when a restaurant, let's say a given state or a community, says, okay, you guys can open up in the manner that they can open. I've heard some say, well, when you factor in what my rent is and the overhead here, and then if I'm only able to have, where I would have 3 tables, only one for that space for social distancing, etc., economically, even if I can turn the lights on, I can't survive. What is some of the calculations? And obviously you have restaurants in one of the most expensive real estates in this country. How does that math work?
Well, the quick answer is the math doesn't work. And we're modeling right now different situations, because it's very hard to predict today what's going to happen 3 months, 6 months, 9 months from now. So we're looking at a bunch of different situations. At a 50% capacity, maybe it's a break even at best, if you're very, very careful with labor forecasts and how you're spending money. And I think we're going to have to be very flexible. And that's what I've been telling a lot of people in my business, that I talk to on a daily basis, is that flexibility and, short-term kind of adjustments is the only way it's going to work.
Leaving the economics aside for just one moment, how will the restaurant experience change? I'm hearing some that the servers will be coming to your tables with masks and gloves on. Menus will become disposable items. Obviously you've thought about this. What do you think, whenever the doors open, it'll look like?
I'm trying, because restaurants are such a social experience, and besides the food, which what I do as a chef, me and my partners, the experiential part of that is such a big part of what we do, and that requires human contact. So we're all trying to envision this sit-down environment where, maybe if you, as a customer, if you have your mask on, are you lifting up the mask to drink from it? Are you lifting up the mask to eat from it? How does the waiter greet your table? And I think that's a gray area. I think it's going to be a messy area to figure out how to be able to do, and execute that. And I think we'll probably open up with delivery and curbside pickup to begin with, depending on the location. We didn't do that right away because we didn't feel confident that there was enough guidelines for safety at that point when all of this hit New York and Detroit and Baltimore, where I have other restaurants also. And that was my biggest concern was, if my employees can't be safe and my customers can't be safe, then we shouldn't just react.
Yeah, I spoke last segment about some of the insanity from my perspective from Washington, where state aid, you had the Senate Majority Leader talking about letting states go bankrupt altogether, including the biggest economic drivers in this country. But what about the aid specifically to restaurants, not just like yours, but the thousands of others that are around this country here who desperately need and can't wait here for help, but it's slow in coming?
Well, I'm doing my big initiative now. I formed a group with some, big name chefs like Andrew Zirin and Tom Colicchio called Independent Restaurant Coalition, and we're lobbying now on the Hill. We have a great team in place to be able to make the feds kind of understand what the business is of independent restaurants and all restaurants, whether it's mine, whether it's something very high end, or whether it's just your corner pizza place. And the PPP program, although well intended, is not really appropriate for restaurants. And we're working through some of those provisions through version 4, actually 3.5 and version 4, being able to translate what life means for restaurateurs and employees that we employ, and to be able to get that done in the next packages from the Fed.
Finally, Andrew, if the lobbying efforts in both D.C. and in your case in New York and in Maryland and Michigan, if the cavalry doesn't come soon, how many more restaurants are really living week to week here, let alone month to month, and just cannot survive here until summertime if there isn't some relief coming?
The relief has to come, and it has to come, to the independent operators. And we've seen that some of the bigger, larger chains have returned some of that PP Monday, which is a huge thing. And, version 4 and version 5 of the stimulus bill needs to address it, because we're talking massive numbers of employees that need to get back to work and need to get the economy going when it is safe to do so.
Andrew Carmellini, I appreciate a few minutes today. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
Up next, in a normal year, this would be about the time here to be dreaming about the coming summer vacation, but nobody's flying, nobody's cruising, hotels almost empty, and a lot of Americans say they will not be traveling anywhere anytime soon. We're going to talk to an industry expert about that next.